What a day. You and I were at US Bank Stadium on Sunday, a finale against the Packers. Pretty remarkable for the NFL and the Vikings that you can play a meaningless game and have so much happen and so much meaningful stuff maybe not happen. And it really set up what's going to be a fascinating offseason for the Vikings and this league. We're going to get to CJ Ham and Harrison Smith and all the good feelings that were justifiably shown on Sunday. But we got to start here on the Viking Update Show with the two biggest question marks heading into the offseason. He's John Krasinski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune, TalkNorth.com. This is one of our football shows at TalkNorth.com. Also check out Alec Lewis's show, athletic beat writer for who covers the team, does a great job for us as well at TalkNorth.com. And Jeff Diamond, former Vikings general manager, also does a show for us. This show is brought to you by two writers who've been around the team, following the team, covering the team for a very long time. And we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services, wishing you a warm and cozy Happy New Year. Not so cozy? Still relying on that furnace that's, well, not so reliable? Here's the fix for 2026. Enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency whole home heating and cooling system. Enjoy today and don't pay until this summer. Schedule your free estimate today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
We're also presented to you by Onyx Hunt and Onyx Fish. We'll tell you more about them later. All right, so J.J. McCarthy didn't quite put a bow on his season, and we still don't know if Brian Flores is coming back. And for all the good feelings, 5-game winning streak, McCarthy winning another start, them playing very well defensively, CJ Ham and Harrison Smith having great final games. For all of that, man, they got questions going into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about, like, the questions are at quarterback and defensive coordinator, and those are two of the three most important positions on the team outside of the head coach. So these are not small things that have to be dealt with, which makes it such an interesting offseason that we are about to embark on, because it could go any number of ways, and it's just going to have enormous ramifications. Maybe they stay with J.J. McCarthy, and that's the right choice, and it becomes, a smart move that really paves the way for the next 5 years. Or maybe they go away from him, and and the revolving door keeps spinning, and who do you go get? And boy, if you lose Brian Flores, which sounds like maybe there's some momentum gathering that way, that would be an enormous loss to what this defense has been, especially over the last 5 games of this winning streak, and given the relative lack of talent that, or lack of star power, I would say, on that side of the ball, it has if they get both of those wrong, they're going to be the Detroit Lions of the early 2000s, real quickly. If they get both of them right, they can get right back into contention and make something happen. But it's just enormously important that things work out the right way at both of those spots.
I've been pro McCarthy, both philosophically and because of what I've seen. I think you're going to draft a guy, move up to draft a guy number 10. You got to give him every opportunity to succeed. I've also loved the fact that and his bad is really bad. When he has a bad game, it's horrific. I mean, at Green Bay, it's terrible. Atlanta was terrible. He's had terrible moments. He's had games where his mechanics look messed up, everything else. But his good is so good. I think it is absolutely incumbent on Kevin O'Connell to find more of the good, to emphasize the good, to help him develop. He's still a very young man, still 22 years old. So I've been pro McCarthy, even understanding the challenges and some of the poor play. I'm also pro player health. One of the things that bothered me covering the NFL for years is the fact that you go to a game and you might see some guy's head caved in, and players celebrating caving in a guy's head. It really always bugged me. I didn't like it. I understand it's a violent game. I don't think it needs to be a game that ends people's, functional lives. But I still couldn't stand to see J.J. McCarthy voluntarily walking off the field when he had a chance to kind of solidify his position as franchise quarterback. It kind of reminded me, going really old school here. I remember Chuck Knobloch begged out of a game in Seattle, playing when he was the Twins' best player. And I asked Tom Kelly, what's wrong with him? Well, he says he has a little fracture in his middle finger on his left hand. And I said, and I kind of just paused, and TK said, everybody has a little fracture in the middle of your left hand. If you x-ray everybody's hand, everybody has something wrong with it. He said, the finger is a long way from the heart. Well, here's JJ McCarthy. I'm sure the hand hurt. I'm sure he had, he felt something on that throw, and it might have affected his performance going forward. Make them drag you off the field. Mm-hmm. Understand it's the last game of the regular season. Understand that your hand wasn't going to get worse. And if you throw a bad pass or something and they have to pull you out, that's fine. Don't just walk off the field and surrender that position. That drove me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, in times like this, I try to sort of look at not how I process it, but like how football people process it. And Ben Lieber was on K-Fan this morning kind of talking, and they asked him about it, and he was pretty frank and just sort of, look, I didn't love the look of that at all. And if he's saying that would largely lead me to believe that he had conversations with teammate or former
Ben's
teammates.
Not exactly a raving contrarian.
Right. Exactly. And so I think he's talked to people in that locker room and probably got a little bit of that same feedback. I do think that from the way that I interpret it, I don't think it's a heart thing for JJ.
No, I don't either.
At all, right?
I think he just made a bad decision.
I think he made a bad decision, and I think it speaks to his lack of confidence right now in terms of I think that he was looking at it as, we have a 13-0 lead. If I make a bad throw here that is a pick six or something like that, that's bad for our team. It's also really bad for me and what I'm trying to do here. And so he was trying to protect himself against that type of a scenario more than any kind of whatever injury that he was having. And so that also does just kind of speak to the larger issue of, I think what you hoped would happen at the end of this season, regardless of whether they made the playoffs or not, was that you could go into this offseason confident that JJ McCarthy had a hold on the position and that you can make plans to change the offense around him, to tweak the scheme, to add different players, but you want for sure to keep going with him. And I still believe, Jim, that they have to do that, just given his age and given Kevin O'Connell's frequent mantra that organizations fail quarterbacks more than quarterbacks fail organizations. So if that's what you believe, you better kind of keep going with it and just, exhaust all possibilities. That said, we're going into this offseason where JJ McCarthy does not have a hold on that position and has not done enough either from inspiring his troops type of a situation, and also just an on-field performance to say, this is my job. And maybe I wasn't great, but I'm going to get better. And so the tenuousness of his hold, of his grip on that spot just really does make so much of this season a waste almost. And just you really wanted to get clarity on the quarterback, on JJ McCarthy by the end of this year. And I just don't think we have that yet. And that's a really difficult spot for the Vikings to be in.
I still like him. I still love the fact. I still love the fact that he played great in big situations. If they tackle a Bears kick returner, he goes 5-1 against the division, which is
they're
amazing.
In the playoffs.
Maybe? Yeah, and they're in the playoffs. So there's a lot of good, and I like the kid. I really want the best for him. I think it would be a blast to watch him develop and become a great quarterback here. And here's the other thing. They may not be able to get someone who can be a true competitor with them for the starting job. Maybe it's easy to say, well, now you have to go get somebody who can compete with them for the starting job. Well, who is that?
Yeah. Right. And it's the same as last year, where it's well, they'll just bring Daniel Jones back and it'll be fine. Well,
Daniel Jones has a say in that.
Exactly. exactly. And so, yeah, I don't know. Is it Mac Jones? Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it, there's guys out there, but there's no one that's like, it's hard because like, I don't think ideally you don't want, say, a guy that's going to come in and be like the starter. Like I do think you probably want to set up a competition, but so you can't bring in someone so accomplished that it's just clear that McCarthy is the backup again. But you also, so you need to find someone who like wants to compete, but hasn't done enough yet to garner the being handed the job. And that in and of itself is problematic because you have a team around you, especially a defense that looks like it's certainly capable of winning games in the playoffs. Whether going to the Super Bowl or not, we'll see. But threading this needle is not going to be easy. And I mean, maybe there's a very small chance that you go trade for Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow or like some star player like that, because it's possible that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah looks around and says, man, I got maybe one more year here, assuming I do get it. Like I better just pull out all the stops and future be damned. I'm going to, just mortgage it to get whatever star quarterback that I can and give us a chance that way and at least show that I'm doing something. But so I think that's not out of the realm of possibility. I think that, I wouldn't be surprised to hear that they make efforts to do that, but that's really, really hard to pull off. Yeah. And so you are left looking at options that are going to be difficult to execute. Like if I'm Mac Jones, I want to be set to coach somewhere where you're the starter. Yep. You are our starting quarterback. I think he will have those opportunities. And so then you're left with Kyler Murray's, Jacoby Brissett's, those types of guys that are uninspiring and probably have a ceiling on them that is lower than you want at that position.
And Mac Jones, you'd have to trade for him.
Yep.
And I just wonder if Kyle Shanahan is going to give up on a good backup quarterback when Brock Purdy he's a little guy who gets beat up.
Yep, it's fair to say.
That team wants to win Super Bowls, and Mac Jones can help them in that regard. Anthony Richardson's really interesting for a couple reasons. Number one, we all know the Vikings really liked him in the draft. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any chance of moving up high enough to get him. They really liked him. He's a great athlete. He threw a lot of interceptions in college, but if you watch the games, they weren't all his fault. And then he goes to Indianapolis. He has the bad moment where he pulls himself out of a game. What does that sound like? But he's another young guy I wouldn't give up on. Now, how much confidence would you have bringing him in? I don't know that you'd have confidence, but he'd be a really interesting guy to have in your system because there really might be a good starting quarterback in there somewhere.
Yeah, there could be. So the interesting part of that is yes, we know that the Vikings really liked him. We know Kevin O'Connell really likes him. He, to me, is almost exactly the same player as JJ McCarthy, not in terms of the way he plays the position, but experience, lack of experience, accuracy issues, all of those things. So I think in a perfect world, you would find a veteran quarterback who has started in the league, has had some success. And you could say, okay, we have this young guy that's still learning, and we have the older veteran guy who maybe, isn't in his prime anymore, but has done it at a reasonably high level and is reliable. And so if you went with Anthony Richardson, it would be completely unreliable wild card. Yep. Maybe we can sprinkle Kevin O'Connell's quarterback dust on him and it'll work where it hasn't on JJ McCarthy. I don't think that Richardson is the type of player that, you could say, I think one of the issues that McCarthy had was absorbing Kevin O'Connell's system, and the coach had to really simplify things for McCarthy to be effective at all. I think it would have to probably be pretty simple for Anthony Richardson as well, just with his lack of experience, with his lack of development. And And so would they do that? I don't know, but you're right. Like it's just a name that has been in the back of my head, just knowing that Kevin O'Connell really likes him, knowing that maybe, they could buy low on him and see what they could get out of him. And it would be a true competition between the two of them. The problem is that they're both really inexperienced. And so there's no like safety net, reliable vet, in that room, assuming that a third quarterback would be of the, Brett Rippon ilk, right, or someone like that.
I do wonder if you're trying to thread the needle. Again, you don't want to give up too many assets. You want somebody who can play, but not somebody who just can assume that they're the starter. The name that sticks in my head is Gardner Minshew. Been a starter, been productive. He has kind of that cocky backup quarterback. I'll come in and sling it if I have to play, but he also is accustomed to being a backup. You wouldn't really presume that he should be the starter. Seems to be a good teammate. I'm not saying Gardner. I'm almost saying Gardner Minshew as a type more than just Gardner Minshew.
Correct.
And that's what they thought they were getting in Sam Howell, and they were wrong. And they got to do better. I mean, one of the story of the season is JJ McCarthy's progress that was both impressive and in the end somewhat unsatisfactory. But part of the story is also they really botched the backup quarterback position all year.
For sure. Yeah, it was a huge problem. And so like, yeah, you're right. Like, I think Minshew has really taken a step back the last couple of years.
Probably has.
But like someone of that.
Yeah.
And like another name that just popped, like Geno Smith, again, no one, the way that he played in Las Vegas, it's not going to excite anyone.
No,
it's not going to be like, oh yeah, okay. Yep. But you hope come into the system, be around, have talent around you, have a good coaching staff. Maybe you can get back to closer to what you were in Seattle than what you were with Las Vegas. And you're there if needed. No one was excited about Case Keenum when he came in here. Not one person. And he turned out to give you one great year. And that's kind of, I think, probably more of what you should hope for in terms of some sort of plan B to JJ McCarthy is, we have to be prepared to be completely underwhelmed by the person that they bring in. And just like, kind of, it would be an expression of faith from the front office in Kevin O'Connell and in Justin Jefferson that, yes, if you come into this system, we will put you in a position to get more out of you than you've gotten in the last few years. Who that is, I'm not sure, but I just find it unlikely, that it would be either, a Lamar Jackson or an Anthony Richardson, like young, another project type of a player.
And the more we talk about it, the more I think we come back to what they really need to have happen in this organization is they need JJ McCarthy to just grow up during this offseason. And I mean, grow physically, grow mentally, grow emotionally, and take the job next year. I mean, it's kind of got to happen.
Right. And I'll just point to this as sort of a silver lining, or however you want to look at it. I wrote about Dallas Turner this morning.
Yep.
And for a year and a half, it looked like this guy's a bust.
Yep.
He doesn't get it. He cannot figure out a complicated system. It's not working out. What another whiff by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. And then over the second half of this year, from week 8 on, he had 6.5 sacks. He started to show more splash plays. It looked like he was getting more comfortable in the defense and absorbing it and understanding the nuances of it. And it also looked like Brian Flores figured out, okay, how do I use him best? Like, he maybe isn't like the cerebral defensive end who's going to drop back in coverage and who's going to like disguise a bunch of stuff. But what he can do is he can turn that corner and he can blow by someone. And if you put a backup left tackle in front of him, he's going to abuse him. And so you saw Dallas Turner put some things together over these last 8 games and culminated with 2 sacks against the Packers, where you say, okay, like this is something that we can build on next season. Is he going to be the next Lawrence Taylor? Maybe not. Or maybe, maybe he will eventually be an elite pass rusher, but he's at least a capable weapon on defense that you can utilize. And that just came with snaps, and that came with repetition, and that came with, he was healthy all year. So he was able to play, and he was able to get in there and get experience and learn and figure it out. And maybe JJ McCarthy just needs more of that time. And maybe he just needs more opportunity to kind of figure all of this out and get a better grasp on the offense and understand the position and figure out, when to take a little off that throw out into the flat and when to scream it in, down the seam. And that is all, I think, very much in play for him. But it is a little bit more of a leap of faith than you'd like it to be at this point, after a full year with him, it kind of trying to run the show here.
Yes, well said. Let's get to some happy Vikings talk here in a second. Do want to tell you about Onyx Fish and Onyx Hunt. Today, I'll tell you about the Onyx Fish. Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake by lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game. That's for ice fishing and other fishing as things hopefully get warmer here. We also want to thank Minnesota State Lottery.
She's Jen, the ultimate Vikings fan.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Vikings Jan Show Fan Show. My special guest today is Jared Allen. So, Jared, who you got for the Vikings game this week?
Minnesota Vikings.
Me too. So that's our show. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the Minnesota Lottery, who reminds you this could be your year. Play the new
Vikings
Scratch Game for a shot at $100,000, game tickets, and more. Minnesota Lottery. I'm in. Must be 18 or older to play.
And once again, a reminder, we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. It was the last 2 games, meaningless games, home games against division rivals, disappointing in that regard, but I thought the Christmas Day game was quite a spectacle, fun to watch. And then this game, the way they were able to honor C.J. Ham, getting him a touchdown, Harrison Smith having all of his old buddies show up for what we think is his final game, including when Jimmy Kleinsasser shows up, it's a big deal. In fact, it reminds me, I did a piece when Steve Hutchinson was closing on retirement. And Steve really did very little media as a player. Just didn't like doing it, didn't feel comfortable doing it. Also, I think Brad Childress told him, even though we got along,
these guys.
Even though we got along with Brad would go behind our backs and say, screw these guys,
Yep.
And so I did a story on Hutch, and, Tom West of the Vikings was very good about helping me get to Hutch. But what I really did was I talked to everybody around Hutch, and then Hutch kind of figured out, hell, this guy's talking to all my friends. It can't be that bad a story, right? And he was very gracious in the end. But I remember talking to Jimmy Kleinsasser at length about Steve Hutchinson, and Jimmy does very few interviews. And, I wrote the story, and somebody told me to check out the comments, right? Because let's face it, anytime you write anything, the comment section is going to bash you for something. That's the way the world works. And the first 3-4 comments were all, oh man, such a nice piece, such a nice piece, such a nice piece. And like the 4th or 5th comment was, you idiots, don't you understand what happened here? Someone quoted Jimmy Kleinsasser. We have proof of life. So when Jimmy Kleinsasser shows up, it's a big deal. I don't think he would have shown up if this wasn't Harrison Smith's last game. So Harrison Smith and C.J. Ham, Harrison's a Hall of Famer. C.J. Ham is, one of the great Vikings because of service and personality and, willingness to do anything they asked of him. 2 great Vikings, and I'm glad they got to be honored that way. It is too bad they didn't have the kneel down at the end with Harrison Smith playing, safety behind the snap and C.J. Ham in his usual spot. But it was all very well done.
It was really, really well done. It reminded me, Jim, of the way baseball does an unbelievable job of sending players off.
Yep.
The Joe Mauer moment, like, Cal Ripken at the All-Star game, like all those things, just amazing job. They really understand how to do it. And this felt like football, like capturing that sort of feel, which was, CJ Ham going out there alone for the coin toss to start. And Harrison Smith told us after the game that the plan was for both of them to go out there. And well, first we talked to CJ and he was asked about, hey, what was it like going out there for the coin toss all by yourself? He's like, yeah, was that the plan? He's like, I got out there and I looked around and there was nobody with me and I didn't know what was going on. And we had to say, yeah, CJ, that was supposed to be for you. And then Harrison Smith told us afterward that it was initially planned that both of the two of them would go out together, and that Harrison said, look, let CJ have this moment by himself. And that was super, super cool of Harrison to do that. Just like the ultimate pullback grinder, under the radar guy, getting that moment was awesome. And then for him, to me, it was awesome to see him in the end zone. But the best part, which actually got me a little choked up, was they showed him, he had to go back out and cover a kick right after that.
Classic moment. That was fantastic.
And they put him on the big screen, they put him on TV, and they showed his wife and his kids and in the stands and stuff. But then he was getting ready to cover the kick and his eyes were glassy. You could tell he was really overcome by the emotion of the moment. And you're like, oh man, this is awesome. To see 10 years that he has been just the consummate professional, the most unbelievable teammate, a great guy in the community, the Duluth roots that he had, all of that stuff. And then to go out like that, incredible, just an amazing moment. And then what I really appreciate about Harrison Smith was that it really does seem like the last 4 or 5 weeks, he's just been able to soak in what's happening. He has not been the hard ass, I'm playing the game and, no, there have been times where he's let the curtain down. He's connected. He's felt the emotions. he saw his teammates, the fan reactions. He's kind of acknowledged the crowds and so neither one said for sure, but I think we both know where they're both going. And just great stuff against the division rival, to have those moments and to walk off the field winners. They both are winners and they deserve every bit of it.
One more note about CJ. It's easy, I think I don't want people to just think of him as just the utility infielder who didn't have any talent but hung around because he was a nice guy or whatever. I remember I did a piece on when the Vikings were going to play San Francisco in the playoffs, however many years ago. I did a piece on Usek and Ham, to the last remaining functional fullbacks. And CJ was playing a little more from scrimmage back then. Usek is obviously a phenomenal player. And I talked to Eric Kendricks about it. He said, you got to understand, he's not just a nice little player. He's a big guy who runs really fast and hits really hard. He said there aren't many people who combine that kind of bulk with that kind of speed and that kind of technique. So you do not want to see that guy come through the hole at you. He was really good at his job. The only reason we didn't see more of him is because he plays now in a passing offense. Yeah.
And to underscore that, the reason that he was here for 10 years is because he was so good. I mean, that's a dying position.
Yep.
They are going away everywhere, but it just was that CJ Ham was too good for them, both offensively, but then special teams as well, for them to let him go. They're just no, we're going to keep bringing back a fullback because he is so important. And then the other part that is just so cool is everyone in that locker room speaks with such reverence about him as a person, as a leader, as an example and tone setter. And my favorite moment of talking to him after the game was, Lindsey Young asked him, just what it meant to hear all of these teammates just speak so warmly about the leadership that he provided over the years. And CJ said, I mean, it's great, but I want to ask them, what did I do? Like, what did I, and that's his humility. Like, but like, that was a guy who we have seen, and there's so many ways to do it, but we are seeing the vocal leaders, the guys who are like standing in the middle of the locker room and pounding their chests and getting people to follow that way. And then there are guys like CJ Ham who they lead without even knowing that they're leading, because they show up every single day. They practice every day. They do their job on game days, and everyone, without him even knowing that they're all watching him, they were all watching him. And so he did not draw any attention to himself, or he did not, go out of his way to be a locker room spokesman. Like, he wasn't one of those guys that we talk to every week, and that, even that you just wanted to talk to because he was out there and available, and like, yeah, I'll share my thoughts on this for you, and played the game that way. He didn't do that. Like, that wasn't him. He was quiet, and he just went about his work. And you realize that is another way to really inspire respect and admiration and dedication, is that there are so many of those guys in the locker room that, man, that guy just puts in the work and does it the right way. And I love that about him. And so really, really just cool to see him get that appreciation in that moment, in addition to the Hall of Famer that Harrison Smith is, and all of the appreciation that is coming his way, deservedly so.
Let's get a final thought from John. There are a million things to talk about, but we're going to have a lot of time to talk about them. We do the show year round. We will be doing it throughout the off season. And guess what? The Vikings will be interesting. Whatever they do, they will be interesting. We'll also talk about the NFL playoffs a little more starting next week. But for today, we want to thank our sponsors. Thank everyone who listens. Please check out the John Krasinski Show on the Timberwolves as well. We do that show and this show on YouTube as well as via audio. You can subscribe to your favorite podcast app. You can also go to talknorth.com to check it out. If you like the Twins, we have Chin Music with Roy Small and the Valley Neal III. We have Michael Russo and Anthony LaPanta on the Wild. Kevin Gorgon Hockey. Don Mitchell has a show. Mark Rosen has a show. We've got Alec Lewis. We got a ton of good stuff. Check out the website. We do appreciate it. All right, John, give me some kind of a final thought today.
Yeah, I think that, it's important to mention that there is like real steam about the Raiders and Brian Flores. And, there's several reports out there that Tom Brady is really interested in him as the head coach, and maybe Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. And I think, like, I will be honest, like, for until the last couple of days, I thought that his chances of getting a head coaching job were minimal. And maybe they still are, but I was less worried about losing him as a defense coordinator, even though I think that was definitely in the cards, or it's in play that he could leave to go somewhere else, Dallas or somewhere. But it does seem like the Raiders are legitimate suitors for him as a head coach. And so we'll see how all that develops with what Tom Brady wants and all that. But that if that happens, he's gone. And then, man, like, good luck. Yeah. Go find someone else. Cause I would say that right now, today, as we record this on Monday morning, the prospects of him actually leaving, I think, are as high as they've ever been. Oh, I agree. I think if Brady wants him, he's probably gonna be the Raiders head coach. I went into Sunday thinking he's not going to get a head coaching job, but he might leave because there's some weird stuff going on in the relationship wise in this organization. Now there are two ways he could leave. There's the Raiders job, and there's also the possibility he just goes elsewhere. Listen, it's always possible you could hire somebody who could be about as good, but it'll be difficult. It would be difficult to hire somebody, and it would also be difficult to hire somebody who would use this exact personnel as well as Flores did. No doubt. It just like, I can't imagine another scenario where a coach has gotten as elite level of performance as the Vikings defense has offered without a Pro Bowl player on their roster. Now, right. I do think Andrew Van Ginkel's a really good player. Jonathan Grenard, obviously, but he's been injured a little bit. And Dallas Turner is coming on. Harrison Smith was good in his last season, but there was no star player here. Nope. There's no Micah Parsons. There's no Patrick Surtain. There's nobody like that. on this team. And yet this group played like a team full of stars. And that is just an enormously difficult thing to pull off. So, that it's such a tribute to what Flores does and the mentality that he brings and all of that. And so, if he goes, I mean, good luck recreating that type of energy and that type of approach and all that. It can be done, but it's going to be a steep mountain to climb.
Harrison Smith, player coach.
Yeah, why not? I mean, shoot. I mean, I'd give that as good a chance of working out as anything else out there for sure.
Good stuff, Jed. Thank you. We'll talk to everybody next week. Thanks to everyone who supports TalkNorth.com, whether you're a listener, a viewer, or an advertiser. We do appreciate it. Let's have a good year.